The Republican nominee has once again given you at home reason to doubt whether he's going to show up to work on September 10th. And here's what he's saying.
Thinking about it. We're thinking about it. They also want to change the rules. You know, the deal was we keep the same rules. Now all of a sudden they want to make a change in the rules because she can't answer questions.
Here we go again. We're back here at the table. Trump now calling into question whether he's going to be there. And the Harris campaign, they're already trolling him. Just listen to this ad that they put out as a result of all of that.
Why not debate her?
Well, wait. But because they already know everything. They say, oh, Trump's, not doing the debate. That's the same thing they say now. I mean, right now I say, why should I do a debate? I'm leading in the polls. And everybody knows her. Everybody knows me.
He doesn't want to debate her, Scott.
Well, first of all, as the only bona fide chicken farmer at this table,
that's why I came to you
first. I am offended by this. He does want to debate her. He's going to debate her. In fact, he wanted to do like 3 debates, and she agreed to this one. And he agreed to the rules against Biden. Now she wants to change the rules, even though these were the rules they used against Biden.
Should he be happy that the rules would be that he can say whatever he wants? Like, I mean, if he really wants to debate her, that would be what he would want.
I don't know. They're going to debate. He needs to debate because he's going to have to hold her to account for her record as vice president, her positions when she ran for president, her record in the Senate, because no one else is going to help him. And the idea that they're calling him chicken when she won't answer a single question, a hard question from a journalist right now, is a little rich to me. But I think they'll do it, and I think they both have reason to need to show up. They both have something to prove.
I mean, I think he's just getting a taste of his own medicine. For the last 8 years or so, Donald Trump has mocked, baited, said nasty things, even most recently as this week. And the Harris campaign is just poking at him, poking the bear and seeing what Donald Trump will show up. Will he debate I mean, I know you feel confident about this. The American people deserve a debate, but I am not sure. Look, why not let the mic stay on? Do you think your candidate can remain disciplined enough? The last debate definitely went in Trump's favor in the immediate. Joe Biden had a terrible performance, which is why now Kamala Harris is at the top of the ticket. I don't think he's going to have another hit like that. And so that's why he's hedging his bets right now.
Yeah, I mean, Harris, look, she doesn't even really have to do anything here because Trump is the one who keeps kind of hemming and hawing about this, giving her the upper hand. And to Scott's point, I mean, the storyline could be about how she hasn't done an interview. We're 5 days away from the end of the month. It's supposed to happen within those 5 days. It hasn't yet, but instead Trump is putting on the table that he's, I don't know, scared, that he doesn't want to do it, that he only wants to do it under circumstances that are favorable to him.
We know a lot of times this is just posturing. We have different people, different campaigns. They're playing the expectations game. They're just trying to have an angle for what they want. I fully agree with Scott here. We're going to see a debate. There's no question about that. The stakes are, of course, very high. The last time President Trump walked onto the debate stage, it was arguably the most consequential presidential debate we've seen, maybe even more so than Nixon versus Kennedy back in 1960. So I'm fully confident there will be a debate, and it's going to be must-see TV.
The funny thing about this debate about debate rules is if you don't adhere to the rules, nothing happens. nobody ever comes out and goes, away.
There are no penalty boxes.
This thing is over now. You just broke the thing. So, I mean, I've been through this a million times.
Which usually, works in Trump's favor because he kind of rolls through these rules, and then it all just ends up with him
one
talking
thing about
more
Trump
than
is
everybody else.
You can prepare for any scenario. And Harris is going to be very prepared. She's going to be very calm. She's going to prosecute him. And it's going to be a very clear debate for her. I think when you go into debates, it's really important to have very specific goals. You want to accomplish, maybe 3 things at most, maybe 4. And that could be anything from prove that you're likable to unveiling new policy to showing that you're tough on foreign policy or something. Harris is a very focused person. This will be a comfortable environment for her.
The if heard round the world. The scheduled debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris is supposed to be exactly 2 weeks from today. We say supposed to because Trump seems to be injecting new doubt into whether it will happen at all. Listen to the if, not when.
I shouldn't say this because if there's a debate, it would be nice to surprise her with that one.
If, he said. So this is how the Harris campaign is responding to the doubt this morning.
Why not debate her?
Well, wait. But because they already know everything. said, oh, Trump's, not doing the debate. That's the same thing they say now. I mean, right now I say, why should I do a debate? I'm leading in the polls.
Not much left.
The sound effects added by the Harris team. CNN's Elena Treen is here with the latest. Elena, so what is the Trump campaign saying about all this morning?
Well, look, it's obviously right now this whole question of will they or won't they debate. I will say from my conversations with Donald Trump's team, they recognize that they need to have a debate before the election. The question is really about the rules. And I know this is such a processy question and that, it sounds like we're getting in the weeds of it, which we are. It's the question of whether or not microphones will be on for the entire length of the debate or shut off for when a candidate is finished speaking. But I think the key thing to take away from this discussion and this debate over the debate, John, is that it shows how important both campaigns view this debate. They recognize it could be a defining moment ahead of the election, just like it was in June for President Joe Biden. And so they want to do whatever they can to have their candidate get an edge. And right now we are seeing this jockeying over the rules, trying to see which side can get, maybe a better advantage or can get an edge in that September 10th debate. That is what this is all about. And it really does come down to that they recognize that this is going to be a big moment, one for Harris to really try and define herself on a grander stage than we've seen apart from last week at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. This is a moment where she can go head to head with Donald Trump on the debate stage. And so they recognize the stakes of this. And I know from my conversations with Trump's senior advisors as well, that they also recognize how important of a moment this is for Donald Trump. And remember, we talked about this in the lead up to the CNN debate in June, but they also recognize that Donald Trump's demeanor, his rhetoric, his tone, whether or not he is being very aggressive toward Harris, that could potentially be even more important for the debate and for some of the prep that they are doing than actually some of the substance. They recognize that he needs to look presidential. He cannot come off looking like a bully. And so that's where a lot of this is coming down to. And I know despite all of this talk behind the scenes, that both sides are prepping. Donald Trump is doing more informal policy sessions, but he is preparing for this because they recognize how important a debate is for both of these campaigns.
Vice President Kamala Harris has promised she will do an interview this month. There's just a few days left. But in the meantime, her campaign just dropped a new ad on the economy pitching her plan to voters. CNN's Priscilla Alvarez joining us now. Priscilla, how is she laying out her economic agenda?
Well, Sarah, of course, the economy is a key issue for voters heading into November, and the campaign is fine-tuning its message on this issue, an issue that up until this point had been talked about in quite vague terms, and the administration sort of saying that it was headed in the right direction. But something that the campaign and that allies of the vice president tell me is that she wants to talk more to the individual experience, recognizing what people are facing. And so there is this new wave of ads that the campaign is releasing. They released one last Friday on economic opportunity, one yesterday on lowering prices and acknowledging that prices are too high. And I'll tell you that over just the last 7 minutes, I got another release from the campaign about yet another economic ad that talks about her growing up in the middle class. So clearly taken together, they are trying to do a couple things here and talking about the issues that affect people, while also her talking about her background and why she is a candidate that understands it best. But take a listen to a clip from an ad released just yesterday.
When I am elected president, I will make it a top priority to bring down costs. We should be doing everything we can to make it more affordable to buy a home. Under my plan, more than 100 million Americans will get a tax cut.
Now, all of this is part of a $150 million August paid media buy. That's going to run on TV in battleground states, one of which the vice president will be visiting tomorrow with her vice presidential nominee. But again, I think what we can expect here from her campaign is that she's going to be trying to speak to the individual experiences of how people are feeling with this economy.
We're looking at the Harris-Walz bus tour, but there is a question about when this interview is supposed to happen. What are you hearing about that?
Well, we have a little more clarity on that from a campaign official who was on CNN yesterday evening saying that they still intend to schedule a sit-down interview by the end of the month. Take a listen.
as the vice president said, and I think you all know, she said that she's going to schedule an interview by the end of the month. I think everybody can look at a calendar. But I think it's also important, I know it's lost sometimes in the discussion about an interview. The vice president's been taking questions from reporters who are covering her on the campaign trail.
Now, the key there, of course, is schedule an interview. It does not mean that it has to happen by the end of the month, but certainly a lot of observers are wanting to see her in an unscripted moment in an interview. And so that is what many are waiting to get more clarity on.
All right, Priscilla Alvarez there for us from Washington. Appreciate it.